Hi, everyone. I'm also a trustee of the Reagan Library and Foundation, and so pleased to be here. What a terrific morning it's been, and the topic could not be more timely. It's an honor to introduce a leader who has been a steadfast advocate for America's national security and technological superiority, Senator Roger Wicker. Throughout his distinguished career, Senator Wicker has championed policies that ensure that the U.S. remains at the forefront of defense innovation. Representing Mississippi in the U.S. Senate since 2007, he has been a tireless voice of the Senate Armed Services Committee, where he has played a critical role in shaping our defense strategy, modernizing our military capabilities, and strengthening the partnerships that keep America safe. As the new chairman and former ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Wicker has been instrumental in advancing defense modernization, ensuring that our military remains equipped for the challenges of the 21st century. His leadership has been vital in promoting cutting-edge defense technologies, from hypersonic weapons to artificial intelligence, and fostering innovation that define the future of warfare. Beyond his legislative record, Senator Wicker brings a deep understanding of both strategic and economic imperatives of national defense. He has worked to expand defense manufacturing, improve the procurement process, invest in worker development, and support the industries that drive American military innovations. His efforts reflect a core belief that deterrence through strength is, in fact, the best path to peace, and a principle that is firmly rooted in President Reagan's vision. At a time of technological innovation and change, and as well as global competition, Senator Wicker's leadership ensures that the United States remains not just prepared for the warfare and conflicts of today, but again, ahead for the challenges of tomorrow. So it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce Senator Wicker, a dedicated public servant and champion for America's defense. And he'll be interviewed on stage here with our own Roger Zakheim. So pleased to have Roger. Both Rogers.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's an honor to have you here at our National Security Innovation Based Summit. I made sure you sat to my right. That wasn't because of a political statement. I just wanted to make sure you had a great view of the White House to your left.
Okay, yes. I have visited there from time to time.
So we'll talk about that.
As a matter of fact, recently, yes.
Yeah. Well, Senator, I have to start with a thank you, because we have Dave Trulio here, our CEO from California. The mandate I have from our Board of Trustees and from Dave is to make sure we take the ideas, principles, and values of President Reagan from the 1980s and make them relevant today. And I'm pretty sure I went to a board meeting not too long ago, and I held up this report from Chairman Roger Wicker. It says, 21st Century Peace Through Strength Report. And I said, done.
What am I bid? Who wants it?
And so thank you for a job retention program for Roger Zakheim at the Reagan Foundation. Okay, we got past the thank you. But Senator, you have been preparing for a while for this moment. You have in your hand two reports. One I just referenced, the other, Freedom's Forge, Restoring Freedom's Forge. These are two products which are available for those here when you exit lunch that in some ways anticipated President Trump occupying the White House and shape for him the opportunities for our national defense, and particularly for this group, how we leverage the innovation base. Would you mind taking just a minute to talk about that work, that preparation?
Well, okay, because it allows me to brag on you, Roger, and on this great organization, because we spent a great deal of time talking to people around town and around the country who know what they're talking about, have done this before, and at least advocated for things like this for a long time. So I can assure you this was not an inside think tank idea. We went to the various think tanks around town, and we talked to people like Roger Zakheim and others like probably people in this audience, and got some ideas. But I think basically the American people, I think, know what they want. And they want the United States to be strong enough to stay out of war. And so building up the military doesn't say we want to be in conflict. We want our military to be so strong that, like during the Reagan and H.W. Bush 12 years, nobody dared take a stab at us because we were so strong and they were comparatively weak and unable to start a war. And I mean, that's one of the great legacies of those 12 years and of Reagan's peace through strength. I'll say this. I really enjoyed last night when President Trump mentioned President Ronald Reagan. I thought that was a great
We can applaud that.
opportunity.
That was a good moment. Yeah.
Yes, but because it's important for a leader to hear both sides, and without question, that's the way a leader decides what the best advice is. So there's some people whispering in his ear that agree with much of these reports, and we absolutely know there's some people also coming in there and arguing just the opposite. There are voices within the Congress who think the best thing we can do for the future of America is be austere in our budget. And, the president last night talked about a balanced budget. He also talked about a very extensive, ambitious list of spending priorities. And so I'm sure there's some conflict there in the White House about how to accomplish both of those. President Reagan always said, our ultimate goal has to be a balanced budget. But we need to spend the money to make sure Americans are safe. And so I was encouraged that it seems that our current president is very much in favor of most of what we're advocating. And frankly, I got a call 2 or 3 weeks ago to come to the White House. And it was Susie Wiles and a couple of others, and Donald Trump and me, and we hashed out some of these ideas. And so I'm encouraged to see that we may be getting somewhere. We got a lot to do, but a lot of bills to pass and a lot of close votes. But I think we're on the way.
So I want to talk about both your meeting with President Trump and how it lines up with a lot of the things that we're talking about today during our summit. That's in the reports that you've just referenced that the Senate Armed Services Committee has put out. A lot of the president's speech last night was emphasizing the things he was doing by executive order or would do by executive order. But Chairman, as you just referenced a moment ago, when it comes to the Golden Dome, not Iron Dome, Golden Dome, he looked back to Speaker Johnson, if I recall correctly, and said this is something he's going to ask of Congress, right? Usually that's what you see from a State of the Union or last night, the joint session. That's been in your report. After you met with the president, your press release emphasized that you'll be working on this. It's a pretty big undertaking. Of course, that's where he referenced President Reagan, new technology, sizable budget requirement.
Reagan-esque.
Yeah,
with current day technology.
So I would love to get your take on how the committee, in particular the Congress writ large, is going to integrate this potentially game-changing sort of investment and priority of the president.
Well, first of all, I didn't agree to the name. I think iron is stronger than gold. Gold is more valuable, but at any rate, he liked gold, and he had the
color of our report
had more
is
votes.
just a coincidence. I just want you to know, but yeah.
But clearly, this is something Ronald Reagan advocated, and the pundits, the Meet the Press people, and the folks that knew better really sniffed at that. That not only was this not going to ever work, where you're hitting a bullet with a bullet, but also it was going to be escalatory and cause our adversaries to try to do kinetic things also, and so this is an idea whose time has come. and it's something we talked about. Now, the role that the House and Senate have is we've got to pass a reconciliation bill, and that's going to require at least 2 successful votes, and well, actually more. The House has passed its budget. The Senate has passed its budget. They now have to be reconciled. And it's not really an issue of whether we have 1 bill or 2 bills. It's an issue about what we're able to do in a timely fashion if we want to act early, or if we want to take time to do one package as we did in 2017. Do you remember when we finally got the tax bill passed in 2017? It was November or December. We worked on it for a while, and we had a lot of talented brain power working on that we still have access to. Tim Scott, Mike Crapo, and of course the leader now, John Thune. They were all part of that, and it happened that yesterday at lunch, Rob Portman, the 4th horseman of that group, they were all with us at lunch, and it took months and months and months to get the tax part right. Here's what we think in the Senate. We think we can do a bill with $150 billion for national defense, $150 billion for border security, and maybe 20 or so for energy. We think we can do that relatively quick. That's easier to get the votes for, and even that is not easy. But we can do that now. That's what our budget resolution provides for. The budget is easier than the bill. You got to have 2 things. The budget's about 5 or 6 pages. It gives instructions to the committees. We're going to have to blend our budget with the House bill, and then we pass the budget, and the president does have to sign it. It then anticipates very complicated legislation, which will be hundreds of pages. And that's why we think we should go ahead with defense and border and energy right now. We've got a little time. Are you interested in the fact that we need to pass a tax bill also? Would you like?
You're getting some thumbs up over here. Head nodding. Okay.
Would you like this tax bill to be permanent law instead of something that expires in 5 years like the last one did? Show of hands. Okay. Only a smattering of applause. I'll have to get back
we'll work
to the
on
president
that.
about that.
Well, they know the president likes one
that's the
beautiful
question.
bill, so they're worried. They're worried.
Well, it would be beautiful to do it all, but we've got we've got 52 votes to work with in the Senate. There's 1 vote we might never get. The House has a very slim majority. Passed their budget resolution, again, 4, 5, 6 pages by 1 vote. Now they've got to get their slim majority to pass a 200-page bill that deals with everything. They've got to satisfy enough of the SALT Republicans.
This is the state and local taxes.
State, local, I think, okay.
On the coast.
So, we never carry California. We haven't carried California in a long time. I do think Ronald Reagan carried it twice.
Indeed.
And even H.W. Bush did. But we don't carry them recently in presidential races. But we win some House seats, some valuable House seats that give us our majority both in California and New York and also New Jersey. Without them, we would not have a majority. The reason we can do any of this, we need to understand, is that once again, as happens only a few times in a century, the stars have lined up, and we have a president a House majority and a Senate majority of the same party. That's the only reason we can do all of this in reconciliation. So we got to get a tax bill that not only does everything we want, but that is permanent and will be scored right by the parliamentarian.
Chairman, this is a unusual moment for those in the national defense and national security foreign policy community. Rarely does a tax bill or reconciliation become relevant into a part of our federal spending that gets an annual appropriation, and you have your authorization. And what happens on the domestic side is for the most part not relevant. But you are talking about something. I'd love for you to expand on the impact, how meaningful reconciliation can be for national defense. To me, it's once in a generation opportunity. You're talking about $150 billion, and then next year probably, maybe another $100 billion.
Oh,
okay, I get a little too optimistic. But the idea that you can go ahead and put.
Are we on the record here? He said that and I didn't.
But I've pretty sure I read that. Some chairman from the Armed Services was quoted referencing that. But the idea here in terms, this is Congress driving this funding. Doesn't require OMB to approve it and sending it up to the Hill. It's outside at this stage of the appropriations process, and you can make investments that you otherwise wouldn't be able to go after because you're not stuck in the annual appropriations saga, which we should hit on too.
Right. Well, in the House where I used to serve, a one vote majority gets an appropriation bill passed. It gets it gets anything passed. In the Senate, if you pass an appropriation bill, it takes 60 votes. And so what a frustration that we Republicans have had is you want to spend more on national defense, as most of you undoubtedly do. And the price for that is you got to get a few Democrats to vote for it also. And they typically want a lot more domestic spending. In reconciliation, which we could do with 50 votes plus the vice president, if it's that close, we don't have to accommodate the social spenders. So that's why this is such a wonderful opportunity to really do what we need to do. And that's why I was so heartened to know that our current president is all for this and understands we need to do it. And even to the extent that that last night he proposed sort of a special task force, I think it would be better named, within the White House to concentrate on shipbuilding. So this is a president who is finally putting his mouth and his advocacy of spending behind a 355 ship Navy, which I got put in the statute about 10 years ago. It's the best opportunity we've had to get the submarines we need in the Pacific, to get the fleet of littoral and destroyer ships that we've needed for so long, and try quickly to catch back up with China on their rate of shipbuilding.
I'd love to go in on that because it stood out from the president's speech last night that he was creating this office. This is create a new office. This is just reminding you of your 1 hour and 41-minute time in the chamber last night, to create a new office of shipbuilding in the White House that offers special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. That's what the president said with respect to this new office on shipbuilding. Unusual to do this out of the White House. You have a Department of Navy that generally is the place where you would house such an effort. We talked about
that may have been running through some minds.
Yeah. Well, so but we know the National Security Advisor is quite focused on this. That's what is a priority of his. He worked with you when he was in the Congress. What opportunities do you think you have here? President Reagan, when he started the Strategic Defense Initiative, you'll recall, also started in the White House, and only at the point where he felt the priority was going to be embraced by the Department of Defense did it migrate over there. That's what came to mind for me. But what special opportunities do you think will be available on the maritime side if you have this office in the White House?
Well, it can only help, and it is, as I understand it, it is defense-related shipbuilding as well as our domestic fleet, which I think most people here understand is part of our backup fleet in case the balloon ever goes up. It can only help. How it will work, I do not know, but I know that the message coming out of that presidential address last night was we need to get busy in a hurry, rebuilding our ships, both domestic, both non-military and DoD, and I was encouraged. How it will work will be fleshed out. Our friends in the Navy need not worry. That this is going to be an assist.
Support function from the White House. This is good.
I heard the two or three sentences.
Got it.
That's about. We had not heard that proposal until last night.
So one of the things the two reports that you're holding, it reflects you, Chairman, and your committee's work that reform is required for national defense, but it's reform with a goal in mind, which is to rebuild. That reform here is not simply just to find efficiencies and perhaps carve out Pentagon spending that could be paid down the deficit, but actually to drive growth in the military where we need it. Here's a question for you. Secretary Hegseth, of course, came out with a memo about an 8% not cut, but reallocation. You have.
That's right.
I got you. So talk about that. And I know you've met with the secretary a lot. I mean, a number of times through his confirmation, and then subsequent to that, your reports really go at the priorities. Our report certainly supports that, where it could be reallocated to the areas of greatest need. Maybe elaborate on where the prospects of reallocation, should the 8% be found, and where the reallocation should go.
Oh, okay, Roger. That is a good way to put it. Should the 8% be found? There's it to say we're asking the people in the Pentagon and in the national defense manufacturing business to look for savings and efficiencies and waste and fraud is not to say that this administration wants to cut spending on the Navy or on the Department of Defense. It simply says this is aspirational. We're asking everybody to look, and so I don't mind that. And actually, Secretary Hegseth and I have talked about that. That this is being interpreted as a request to cut expenditures for national defense while we're plussing it up on the reconciliation bill side of it. I don't think that's what it is. The overall goal is to get our manufacturing capability, our industrial base, back where it needs to be, and part of that is efficiency, which is this Freedom's Forge thing. And really, I'm not sure who's in the audience, but if you've been involved in a program that or a new class of ship or anything from Air Force to Army to Navy and whatever, you know how archaic and ossified and old our procedures are. And if you are in a new startup in private enterprise, you are not doing business like we have to do in the Pentagon. There are too many people that have to touch a project. There are too many things that have been built in, and so we need to cut red tape, which is it sounds like a trite expression, but we're going to have to cut layers of bureaucracy, keep the things that move that move things along at a faster pace in the private sector. And I'll tell you, the response that we're getting from the big companies, but particularly from the startups and the ones who'd like to get in and be part of a program, has just been phenomenal. and I'll tell you this. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I met with some people from NASA today, and they would like the Forged Act to also be enacted with regard to the space program, with regard to getting to Mars. I don't know about you, but I was encouraged that the president is thinking big. And again, going to Mars is expensive, but the people who are in the president's ear about being the world leader in something that is the next frontier, they seem to be on the ascendancy. And I was surprised to hear him talk about Mars and talk about NASA and the space program. I don't know who could have put that
No idea.
in his consciousness, but I was encouraged.
Senator, you just referenced the startups that really have risen in the National Defense Committee. This innovation-based summit that we're convening today is a reflection of the growth and interest of that
Who do
community.
we have here? I should have checked with you
Everybody who
beforehand.
matters in the world of national defense and innovation center.
I didn't study my lessons.
Well, I'm sure they'll all want to meet you. So if you stick
Oh,
around,
okay.
you'll get an answer to that question.
When I walked in, I
But-
was just mobbed.
Yeah.
It's so old.
This is one place you could tell your grandchildren you have rock star status. So, Chairman, but here's a question and something I'd like you to react to. So, the conversations today, a lot of discussion in terms of new entrants trying to break in. You just hit on that. A lot of discussion about the defense primes, the traditional sometimes they're referred to, and the work they do, which you reference as important as essential. A difference between this year and let's say 2-3 years ago is the mindset seems to be, how do we get those new tech companies to collaborate more, to have a deeper relationship, embed within the defense primes? And I'm curious where you sit. The binary framework maybe we heard about in the past that, the old guys need to get out, the new entrants need to be in. No, the new entrants don't know how to build things. We know how to do it. Some of the narrative that was there. To what extent do you see it changing that integration? It's kind of the way John Lehman did it when he was Secretary of Navy, where he took an old battleship and he brought in all the new technology and systems on the old battleship to make it relevant to war fighting of his day. How do you look at that?
Oh, okay. Let me try to answer it this way. For the last several years, as I got to the top Republican position on the Armed Services Committee, I've been saying, let's move toward 355 ships. We always say we have this goal, and even presidents say they want to do that. But when the budget comes out, we actually have fewer ships, and it's embarrassing how we're doing. We need to produce we are producing 1.2 attack submarines a year. We need to produce 2.7, or we need to produce almost 3 a year. But when I say we need to do that, they say, well, even if we appropriated the money, we don't have anywhere to do it. We wouldn't be able to get there. And I said, the way to get started doing it is to say we're going to get started. And yes, we need to expand shipyards, and we need to be innovative and look at places we've closed, and look at the other end of the yard, or the place across the bay that has been closed for a while. But let's get started, and I think we have a president that's interested in doing that. I think the traditional the traditional folks and the startups and the newer, more modern approach, I think they're going to work together just fine. I think they're going to have to, and they'll be glad of it, because it's a big guy that finally rolls that submarine out. But we're also going to have to start paying welders, shipbuilders. We're going to have to start paying them enough to keep them. In Pascagoula, Mississippi, you can leave the shipyard and work at the Buc-ee's 10 miles away and make just as much money. It's a lot easier to work at Buc-ee's than welding or being an experienced 15 or 20-year expert in building ship after ship, and so that's why I'm advocating. I'm one of several and involved in this discussion in the White House on the SAWS idea, SAWS. If you're from up north, you say saws. If you're from Mississippi, you say saws. But it is a way, without having a budget score, to move appropriated money from the out years to the current year and give our shipyard workers, particularly right now, I'm interested in submarine workers, a big pay raise to incentivize them and incentivize our submarine industry to expand. We can't do it unless we're willing to pay talented men and women to do this very difficult physical job.
A couple more questions for you, and then we'll take a few from the audience.
Don't you want to endorse SAWS?
I think we need to see a lot more head nodding here if we want the chairman to stick around. Here we go.
Well, if you can pay, and the reason I mention it now is that debate is going on right now, and you can imagine where OMB might be on something new that doesn't score. It's almost like magic, so it must be something wrong with it. But that debate is going on right now in the White House. But if we can find out a way that does not score as an extra expenditure and simply moves money that we're already planning to spend to this year, I'd like to see what the negatives are that outweigh the really positive effect of getting our workforce in line with where our industrial base.
I'm just looking for Director Vaught's response from the view behind my left shoulder here. I'm not seeing any smoke go up. I don't know if that's an acceptance of your proposal or not.
Yeah, well, to take on OMB, they really are the most powerful office in the government, and I learned that long ago. They're very frustrating.
Chairman,
but they're the ones that have kept us from having this big national debt, haven't they?
Okay,
it's been wonderful.
Look at that.
The way
taking
they've
shots. I like this. Okay, it's getting good here. We don't need the coffee at dessert. Chairman, two more questions. So, and then we'll give you some dessert. So, this is not happening in a vacuum, Chairman. As the president was speaking yesterday, it was reported that China was once again going to increase their investment in their national defense by 7.5% over a 2-year period. We're talking about 15% growth, substantial investment. Even they're investing more as a percentage than their economy's going to grow, at least the planned growth. So it shows where Xi is planning to take the PRC. President Trump did not mention China last night. At least I didn't hear it. You spent time with President Trump, as you referenced at the start of this conversation. How much, in your mind, is China top of mind for the Commander-in-Chief as he pursues this rebuilding that we've discussed?
I think he's aware that as the past administrations have said, they are our pacing threat. It's an adjective I didn't know until somebody said but they're our main threat, no question about it. And we have to be careful that a country might try to sneak up on us. We have to worry about that with China. The president, the dictator / president of the People's Republic of China went before his assembly and told the world, I want you to be ready. I want us, the PRC, to be ready to take Taiwan by the year 2027. So he's making no secret of it. Of course, the way he would phrase it is, I want us to reunify all of China by 2027. But and we don't have to wonder if this is an option for Xi Jinping. It is, and so we need to be aware of that. And I think I'm guessing the president did mention perhaps he said the word Pacific last night. I'm not sure. It was a long speech, but I can assure you, really, the debate in the White House and among the people that we're being asked to confirm is whether we should view everybody as my report and as your advice has counseled us to view them all as an axis of aggressors, or whether we should say we can't spend as much time worrying about Iran and Russia anymore because we got to worry about China. That is the debate, and to me, what makes sense is when we see North Korea helping Russia on a kinetic war that's going on right now, we kind of know they're part of an axis. And when we see how Iran is helping Russia and how Iran is working with communist China and back and forth, it seems to me that we have to be mindful of all of them. But absolutely, it is helpful that we have more allies in the Pacific. We have more agreements in the Pacific now than we've had. AUKUS can work, but we're going to have to gets back to the submarines. It can't work unless we're willing to start paying folks to go to the shipyard and help us build 2.5 submarines a year.
I'm glad you mentioned Russia in your comments just now, and the word dictator is relevant to Vladimir Putin just as much as it is to Xi.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at the lapel pin that you have on. You've been an eloquent and principled supporter of Ukraine, a voice in the Congress talking about freedom and the importance of the United States standing with those who seek to preserve their freedom, and been clear-eyed, Chairman, about Russia, what Russia is, and not equivocating on whether they invaded Ukraine. The facts are what they are, and they invaded. Of course, this has been the storyline for the past week or so since President Trump and President Zelensky had their meeting in the Oval Office. Can't let you go without you sharing a little bit about what you see in front of us, where this will go. You made a statement yesterday during a confirmation hearing about family fights and the like, and I think message there.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, well, we listened to you, Chairman, and what was important to me was less on the fighting side of the house, but the fact you referenced it as family, and that's an important message for everyone involved. That's the way I understood it. What do you want us to understand?
Well, that's the way I'd like
Ukraine?
to view it. Okay, we're on the record, and I guess that is that camera turned on. I was afraid it was.
See, you're getting a very affirmative nod.
So I'm being careful because I don't want anything that I might say to be reported as or interpreted one way or the other. I just think, and I was advising my Democrat and Republican members of the committee yesterday, let's take a deep breath. Let's be thankful for that statement yesterday. By President Zelensky, when I read it, I took time out of the hearing to read it into the record of the hearing, and hallelujah, Donald Trump read it into his speech last night, and there was no apology requested. This is, I think, enough to get the talks going. I would hope the minerals agreement can be signed soon. I would hope that we can be appreciative of what our European friends view as assistance rather than criticism. But I don't want to say any more except that some mornings I'm in despair, and by the afternoon I'm feeling very optimistic. I choose today to feel optimistic that we may be able to get an agreement that has some safety provisions that our friends in Europe can depend on.
You're in Reagan country. Optimism is just part of our DNA.
Right.
Senator, so it's good. All right, we have time for, I think, one or maybe two questions. Colleagues with microphones are around, so just raise your hand. I see in the back over here to my left. Kira in the back over here, if that's whoever. Oh, okay, there we go. Just say your name and your affiliation, and make sure it's a question, not a comment.
It'll be quick. Thank you, Roger.
Good to see
Mr. Chairman, what is going to happen next week to the FY25 appropriation?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm very unhappy with where it's headed. The fact that we cannot, even with a Republican president, House and Senate, we can't come up with an appropriation bill and have to do a continuing resolution is regrettable. Well, we headed toward a continuing resolution, and there'll be some changes, a little tweaking, which we call anomalies. But basically, in my view, it freezes in most of what the Biden appropriation bills that he signed previously, and that's not a good thing. It's not good for defense. It's not good for new programming, and it freezes a lot of things that we've abandoned into place.
Okay.
I am pessimistic that may happen. Yes. Yes.
The Reagan optimism runs dry quickly. We will go.
Ronald Reagan was a realist.
That's true. That's true, Chairman. All right.
I hope I'm wrong.
We're gonna end it there. We have a great program this afternoon. Please join me in thanking Chairman Wicker.